starting. But welcome, everyone. Good morning, and thanks for joining us today and for your interest in the Luksic Visiting Scholars Program at Stanford Center for Latin American Studies, also known as CLAS. My name is Gabrielle Trasati. I'm the Outreach Coordinator for the Luksic Scholars Foundation. So I'll go ahead and start today's event just providing you guys with some quick information about the foundation itself. And then we will hear from Dr. Alberto Diaz-Cayeros, who is the director of the Stanford CLAS, the center there for Latin American Studies. He'll tell us more about the program, what you can expect, details about the application process, for example. And then we're also joined by Enzo Sauma, who completed this program in the winter term just of last year. So he'll share his firsthand experience as a participant. So we're very lucky to have you guys with us today. You'll also be able to ask Alberto and Enzo any of your questions you may have as we near the end of the event, just so that you have all of the information on hand so that you feel encouraged and prepared to apply. So just quickly on the foundation, for the past 20 years, our goal has been to provide Chileans and Latin Americans with access to academic opportunities that will help strengthen their leadership, other skill sets, and of course, knowledge. And our journey started in collaboration with the Harvard David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies to support academics from Chile so they could go abroad, access resources, the libraries, experts there in the US, much like the Stanford CLAS program is looking to do as well. And since that year, we've been able to implement over 30 programs in partnership with 18 universities, and these span across 7 different countries. So we're talking about Chile, of course, China, Croatia, France, the US, and the UK. And as a result, there have been over 1,800 individuals who participated in these initiatives. And then what we did in 2019 is we essentially looked back and said, wow, we have over 1,000 Luksic scholars who participated in these programs. Let's see if we can bring them together so that they can network, share opportunities, come to breakfasts here in the office, for example. Let's get them connected. And that's when the Luksic Scholars community was created. And then the following year is when we were formally recognized as a foundation. And so in the work that we do, we are guided by 3 principles. The first being, of course, country vision. So we want to make sure all of the work and programs that we do, all the support we provide are, of course, aligning in some way with Chile's development and needs. Of course, we do keep in mind that today's challenges are both global and interdisciplinary. Connectedness is also a principle we have in mind. We seek to create and strengthen bridges, not only within Chile, but with Chile and the world. And we do this by making strategic collaborations, specifically with academic institutions. So with Stanford CLAS, for example. And then finally, plurality. One of our new goals over this past year and a half has been making sure that a diverse range of people and talent are able to access the opportunities that we support. So much like this information session that we have today, we are looking forward to sort of visiting campuses and universities this year, next year within Chile. And of course, sharing this information with friends and colleagues who might be interested is a sort of way to alleviate maybe that gap of information sharing. And so the 3 types of programs we support, firstly, are master's scholarships to support the development of experts and leaders in various fields. Secondly, and the type of program we'll be talking about today, is research funding, so to help foster the development of local knowledge and to help better position Chilean academia in the world. And thirdly, we have bespoke programs which are designed to enhance specific skill sets and certifications for professionals and or even institutions. And so then any of the participants of these three types of programs have been invited voluntarily, of course, to join the Luksic Scholars community, through which we connect scholars. The idea and goal behind this community is to offer ongoing professional opportunities after your program. But even before you start your program, as a foundation, we get in touch with you. We invite you here to the office, or we get on a welcome call with you. We want to get to know you, hear about your research, what your goals are for the program. And then once you're there at Stanford's campus, we keep in touch. The Stanford team is lovely and wonderful. They're there to support you as well. And then we're also here sort of as that institutional support after you finish your program. And lastly, I will end here, of course, on our partnership with Stanford CLAS. This began in 2020, and since then, opportunity, one of whom is currently on campus. The program is available to academics from any academic discipline, any academic field, and it does provide you with travel cost, housing support, as well as a stipend. And the stipend is based on a spending analysis. So we want to make sure it, of course, covers all the living costs that you can find there in California. And then I know Alberto will touch a bit more on this, but you also will get access to Stanford's top facilities, the libraries. You'll meet experts, you sit in on classes and seminars, and they really invite you to be part of the academic life there on campus. So this year, Stanford CLAS will select 2 Luksic Scholars, and applications close on January 31st of next year. So just in a couple of months. I know it might sound far away, but we sort of are nearing the end of the year. I did just want to emphasize the biggest change in the application between last year and this year is that the letter of sponsorship is no longer required. It was previously required to receive a letter of nomination from a Stanford professor there on campus, but now that is optional. You can simply list out 3 Stanford University professors with whom you'd like to collaborate or associate with. So I know Alberto will touch on more of those details, but we really invite you to apply to this wonderful program. Do keep in mind you apply directly to Stanford CLAS. As the foundation, we do not participate in any of the admissions processes. So that is it from me. Thanks again. We will send a recording of the event to your email after, and it will be made available online. So we hope that you enjoy. I will go ahead now and pass it over to Alberto.
Well, thank you, Gabriel, for that introduction of both the Luksic program and also our collaboration specific to CLAS at Stanford. So I'm Alberto Diaz-Cayeros. I'm originally a national of Mexico. I've been very excited about this opportunity, despite the pandemic interrupting all the excitement that came when Andronico Luksic visited Stanford, and the possibilities that we could see of ways in which we could enhance the things we already do at Stanford, at the Center for Latin American Studies, but finding a very specific niche that we thought was missing, which is the possibility of visiting scholar residential stays that are not necessarily linked to teaching. So they are really, give the freedom to the scholar to really pursue whatever their interests are at their own pace, in their own time, while also making sure that the process would attract somewhat young scholars, scholars that might not have had already the connections with a lot of the institutions in the US or with Stanford itself. So what really excited us about this opportunity was to have this flexible format in which we can attract scholars from many disciplines who would be coming to Stanford and spend time in the community of the Center for Latin American Studies, and also the communities of their other affiliations, of their other scholarly disciplinary interests. And to some extent, my biggest goal is to make sure that the conditions of whoever comes are such, and Enzo Sauma will be able to probably share a bit more about this with you. He was with us a few years ago. Whether to find ways so that the conditions for the scholar are as privileged as those that a Stanford professor usually has, or a young Stanford researcher has. So being able to really access either their library resources, or in the case of the hard sciences, the laboratories and the research groups that exist in the campus, and in some ways also ensure that this space of academic freedom would just let them make connections with either because they are already, somewhat connected or have learned about the scholarship that, or scholars at Stanford that are already doing things that are not necessarily about Chile. They could be about any of their scholarly pursuits, or just to create completely new links and completely new ideas that might even enhance their research agenda in directions they did not expect. So that's what excites me about the program. The kind of requirements for the program, we have shifted them slightly, as Gabriel mentioned. One thing that is very important for us, of course, is the statement of purpose. What is it that you plan to do when you come here? I can answer questions about those statements if people have specific, things they want to know. But there, mostly what you want to be able to do is to make the committee, which is this is the scholars are selected by a committee of Stanford faculty and a couple of people from the Stanford Center for Latin American Studies. And what we need to know in that statement is a little bit why what you're doing is so exciting and so important. And I should mention, this includes, the kind of work that Enzo does, for example, is quite unusual, either for economists or for engineers. We had a person doing nanotechnology a couple of years ago as well. And in some ways, these areas of scholarly interest, what we want is things that are, in breaking new ground, and things that are in the boundaries of knowledge. And that's what you want to make us understand as a committee in your statement. The other thing that we have flexibilized is that we used to request a letter from a Stanford faculty that would be someone that would endorse your project, or in a way make an official invitation. We realized that this is not necessarily a good idea, because it in some ways enhances or creates a barrier of some of the inequalities that already exist in academia. Some people have had the privilege of already being connected through international conferences, or to where they got their degree in their PhD studies. That they are already connected with US scholars, and some other people are not. And we wanted to make sure that we would not create that kind of barrier. The reason why we do want, however, some buy-in from Stanford faculty is because we want you to be connected to our scholarly community. So even if you do not have an actual letter, that is completely optional. If you have a letter, you can reach out to us and we can tell you about people who are working in your fields of study, who might be interested in your projects. But even if you don't have that kind of letter, what we would like to even, just as an idea is, tell us who you think might be persons at Stanford that could be suitable. And particularly, this could be very important for people in the hard sciences, where if you don't have access to the labs or to the research groups, it might be very difficult to, do the kind of work you want to do. In the humanities or the social sciences, people might be able to go and use the library resources and other things quite effectively, even without an academic peer within Stanford. So that's the other thing we do need. We also require, and this might be, somewhat strange, but we do require English, some proficiency in English. And the reason, again, is because we really believe you want to interact with the scholars who are at Stanford. Many of the scholars that you want to engage might not even be so interested in Chile or in Latin America, or speak Spanish or know much about Latin American culture, but they might be really interested in your research program, in the things you are doing. And we want to make those bridges, and those bridges in a way require us to do it in English, and also the engagement with the overall university, with the larger community of the university. As I mentioned, the last thing I do want to say is we really care right now about our relationship with Chile. We think it is a crucial space within Latin America because of the social and the political and the economic processes that the country has been going through. As a center, it is one of our priority areas. Stanford has also a program where we send exchange students to Santiago. And we really have been trying to get greater, awareness within the Stanford community of Chilean reality and society. If you are interested in teaching, I do want to mention that's a completely different track, and that is not, doesn't really exclude one from the other. Right now, this year, for reasons that I did not really, plan it to be this way, but our two Tinker visiting professors, which are the ones that come to teach for the quarter at Stanford, happen to be Chilean. One is a mathematician, the other one is a literary studies scholar. But do keep in mind that if what you want is an engagement which might be a little bit longer term that would require teaching, do look into the Tinker Visiting Professorship as a different alternative, as a different idea. That one does not give you the freedom that the Luksic one does, because then you really have to prepare, a core syllabus, and usually this very precious time of research, you don't want to spend it teaching. That would be my general advice. So in a way, what I'm trying to tell you is, I think this is the best opportunity. But if you want to look into other alternatives within Stanford, the Luksic is not the only one. A final thing I do want to mention about the letters of recommendation. We do require one letter of recommendation. We say in our statement that we think it should, in principle, come from your, dean or someone who is in your academic division. But at the same time, what I want to emphasize there is what we want is someone who can speak to the relevance and importance of your work, and also to the way in which this experience will be connected with your returning to Chile and being able to teach or to continue your scholarship. So when we say that that's the kind of letter we want, it's not necessarily that we want a letter from a dean, and particularly we don't want a letter from the rector de la universidad that doesn't even know you. That would not really be a very good letter. We want a letter that is informative, that tells us about who you are, why it matters, why it is important, but also some sense of how you are building institutional bridges between Stanford and your home institution. So that's the kind of letter that we're looking for. Gabriel, I think I covered the points I wanted to do. Yeah, okay. So
Great. No, thank you, Alberto. And of course, for all those who are listening in, there will be time to ask Alberto questions after the scholar portion. So thank you for those details, Alberto. We will now go over to Enzo, who's going to share his firsthand experience having completed this program last year. So welcome, Enzo. Thanks for being here. It would be great if you could just tell everyone a bit about yourself and what your research is in.
Yeah, thank you, Gabriela, for the introduction. My name is Enzo Sauma. I'm a professor at the Catholic University in the School of Engineering and in the Industrial Engineering department. I did my PhD in operation research related with optimization models, mathematical models, optimization models at Berkeley, at UC Berkeley. And at the time I was doing my PhD, also, I took all the courses related with economics, because I always wanted to not only to work with the math of the optimization models, but also looking at the analysis and applications. And the reason why I mentioned this is because, in general, I apply all these to electricity markets, but I always want to look at more interdisciplinary work, looking not only the math or the science, but also the economics, the behavior of the people. For example, one of the things that I'm working in general, I started working when I went to Stanford on winter 2022, and I continue working here, is in the green hydrogen stuff and how green hydrogen impact the economy and the system. Not only from a mathematical point of view, but also from the behavior of the people, the use of the land, and so on. And that was one of the main motivation for me to apply to this opportunity in Stanford, because I see that, first of all, who is organizing this is the Center of Latin American Studies. It's not a scientist faculty. I mean, it's not a pure science. And that's very interesting. I mean, that mixture, that interdisciplinary is one of the motivation that attract me to apply. And then, well, I work with one professor, which is Frank Wallach, from the economic faculty, but also I interact with people at the Center of Latin American Study. I did a seminar there that was tremendously fun, but also very interesting to interact with people with the students from different faculties, from social science, and see how they react to the topics that I was exposing there. So I think that one of the motivation was that the interdisciplinary that we have there. The second thing that Alberto mentioned is that the flexibility that this opportunity has is wonderful. In general, I teach every semester here in Chile, so I'm not able to be a whole semester outside. Well, except if you are in the sabbatical, but it was not the case. So this flexibility to go to winter, to take a little bit of December, but spend January and February, which is summer for us, was the perfect flexibility to not losing classes here and have the opportunity to do very good research there. We start working, as I mentioned, in this hydrogen stuff with Frank Wallach. We already wrote a paper on that. We are trying to write a second paper. So we continue working on that, and that was wonderful. One thing that was key for me, and is part of my advice, is that Frank Wallach introduced me in the ecosystem of Stanford. So while being there, Frank invited me to the seminars the faculty was organizing, to the Congress that they were organizing. I was part of the community in Stanford. So that's very important. For me, that was the key. I mean, that PIMPA was very lucky that at that time that I was there, they organized 2 international seminars and Congress. And I was part of that. I was hearing people that from Chile, we pay a fortune to go to those Congress. And here was part of that. I mean, that's part of the daily activities, and that's great. I mean, that I think that you need to take care of that to be sure that you are part of the ecosystem, that you are participating on all the stuff. And the other thing that is important is that, well, it's, for me at least, it's very interesting. It's not only work with the people in your discipline. I mean, that most of my work was going daily to the office and talk with Frank Wallach and with the people who was working in the group and discussing different topics. But also I really enjoy to connect with other people within the Stanford from other faculties, talk with them, just a coffee, just a lunch, whatever. But then having those connections is a great opportunity. The good thing is that this fellowship doesn't require anything of this. They are not. They never ask me to do network connection. They never ask me to work on papers, but it's a great opportunity, and it's a great opportunity to take it and to talk with as many people as you can, to create this network, to create this opportunity, and to know different possibilities that emerge from these conversations. So that's my main advice, to be open to talk with whatever you think that could be interesting in any area in the topic that you are researching.
Thank you, Enzo. That's wonderful. And I do want to just emphasize on the flexibility of the program and the fact that Alberto was saying Chile is definitely on the map for the Center of Latin American Studies. They want to hear from Chileans. They want Chilean professors there on campus. And I believe even just all the other Stanford professors there want to meet you. They want to get to know you, what you're working on. And as Enzo's saying, to sort of be able to make those connections and reach out, have coffees with people. That's certainly the idea, and sort of living that academic, like being very much a part of the academic life there on campus. That the information was great that you provided, Enzo. I don't know if there's anything, Alberto, that you wanted to ask Enzo or feel that he should add, but I think we can head into the questions and answer section quite soon, but wanted to check to see.
I can just add one thing. One wonderful moment when Enzo was with us is precisely his work is very mathematical, very technical. And one would think, okay, so this person looks at grids of electricity, and why would a Center for Latin American Studies, which is more usually Centers for Latin American Studies, concentrate people who are interested in culture, in history, in the humanities, a little bit on the social sciences. And that seminar was wonderful because it was just like this pushing the envelope about, where, of course, Enzo understood his audience and he figured out how to convey in ways that were, tractable, even though he did not dumb it down. I mean, he was really talking about, complicated processes and the decision operations research, decision questions. But at the same time, he was able to engage with this community. And that's the kind of thing I think Stanford is particularly a good place for. I mean, Stanford, I think that's part of the whole ethos of the Silicon Valley culture and the way in which, innovation and things like this occur in that area of the country. So I really love that you mentioned that, Enzo, because it was a wonderful seminar and people loved it. I mean, even though they wrote reactions to me telling me, oh, that was the one I liked the most, of all the talks in the quarter, even though I never thought I would like it, no?
And just another to add on that in terms of the foundation, and as Enzo mentioned, we don't require, there's nothing obligatory on our end. The idea is that you're able to spend those 4 months focusing on your research, making those connections, getting to know the Stanford campus and staff. There's, we know you'll probably end up coming back here to Chile, but there's no obligation and anything like that. We simply invite you to join the Luksic Scholars community so you can stay connected or get to know other scholars who've done similar programs like this in the past. So we definitely encourage you to apply. We can now, I think, open the space to some questions in the audience. Please feel free to write them in the chat, or you can also raise your hand and we can invite you to unmute. But definitely please take advantage of this time that we're here with Alberto and Enzo to answer any doubts, questions you may have. Alberto, feel free to remake me the host. I made you the host because of technical difficulties, but feel free, if you can, remake me the host, and I can help with the question.
I am having trouble posting the message in the chat, so I think I have to make you the host again. Oh, Mariela.
Perfect. Marietta, perfect.
Marietta Valdivia is raising her hand.
Great. And then if you could make me host.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to do it.
The little 3 buttons in the top right corner.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Top right corner.
Yes. So if you see my name, you'll see there's mute and then 3 little buttons.
Oh, okay, I understand where, yes.
And then we'll be able to unmute Marietta and Lano. Yes, perfect. I'm okay. Hosts, great. Okay, Marietta, we'll go ahead and unmute you and hope it will work.
Here, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for the talk. It was I think everything is very clear. So I'm doing my PhD at UCL, and I think I'm gonna finish. I hope I'm gonna finish next year, or probably in a year and a half. And I'm really interested in this program. But my question is, I don't really know what is going to happen, obviously, in a year and a half. So in the case that I'm not affiliated to a Chilean university, so for example, because obviously it's really difficult to get a position, or a position in a university, and also particularly when you're just finishing your PhD, right? So I was just looking at the requirements, and it says that based on some on their professional trajectory, there could be like probably we can make a request to have this requirement waived, right? So I would like to know more about that, or if is it better to just have a position in a university, a Chilean university, or if I can have some kind of position, teaching position or something in a think tank, not necessarily in Chile. And that's it. Thank you. I know, maybe, is that clear?
No,
Yeah,
it's
thanks,
a
Marietta.
Thank you.
you.
I think I can answer your question. You can get more details if you want from writing to us at CLAS, and you could write to our associate director, or just a general question to the CLAS email. But in general, the impression we have about this is we do have a line there that says we are able to bring in independent scholars. And the idea there was always, that language was there because we always wanted to make sure we could have this flexibility of people that might not have the typical academic career or the typical academic job. And somehow this idea of the independent scholars was also because of a trend that is going on, unfortunately, where universities in Latin America, and I'm sure this is true in Chile as well, sometimes they don't, people are not following the typical tracks that it used to be, that you started, you went, I don't know how it's called, an oposición, and you just tried to get a job, and you interviewed, and you got the job. So we understand those different career tracks. And one of the things we developed this in real, very good conversations with the foundation also, that we want to make sure we can attract people, and there's nothing wrong with you being in Católica and so, but we want to make sure that we bring people from universities outside of Santiago, that we bring people from, disciplines that we might not even be considering, and even people who are doing, career choices or career tracks that are not the most conventional. So that was one thing we always wanted to attract in the way the setup is made. Does that answer a little bit your question, Marietta?
Yes, perfect. So yes, that's really good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Marietta. Leonel will now unmute your mic so you can ask us your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Thank you. It's very clear. I think I now have a much better impression of the program. It looks very exciting. I am currently an associate professor at the University of Santiago. I lead a research group in the area of pharmacology, toxicology, and neurosciences. And my interest is on Alzheimer's disease and gut microbiota. And I looked briefly of the groups in Stanford, and there are groups working in that area. My question is, that area, the microbiome, cognitive impairments, and Alzheimer, is an area that might be suitable for this program?
Can I answer that one too, Gabriel?
Yeah, you go ahead, Alberto. You're the expert.
No,
Please.
so I think this is completely right. I would not be competent to tell you exactly who you have to connect with in the School of Medicine or in some of the, either the biology department, because there's always these groups and also some research institutes that might be doing things in the intersections of science and medical sciences. So I would not be able to tell you exactly who you have to connect with, but this is part of our job as a Center for Latin American Studies. We will try to help you figure out, and we can ask our colleagues, our, affiliated faculty for advice on these things. And the one thing I can say, however, from the experience of Carolina Parra, who was with us, it was the same year as you, Enzo, right? Yeah. So Carolina, for example, she worked on this very specific area of sciences, which is nanotechnology, and she really needed to be connected to a lab that would give her the access to the, I have no idea what machines or what devices they use in that scientific field. So that would be my one concern, Lionel, that we would need to be able to figure out ways for you to be connected with the, with either the labs or the clinical, people in the medical school who would be able to, to house you or to, because we wouldn't like you to have an office in our lovely house. The Bolivar house is in a lovely building, but we wouldn't want someone who needs to be with the, with the medical specialists or with
I can take care of that. I can look for the group and identify the potential partner that would benefit the most an interaction between my university and Stanford, and proposed this interaction for the program. Is that okay?
That would be my advice. Exactly. Okay. And if at some level you even want to reach out to one of the faculty, that doesn't always work, I have to confess, because Stanford faculty are often so overwhelmed, and they, they're so focused on their research and their scholarship. They get this email from someone in Chile and they say, well, I have no idea what this is, and they might not. But this is, again, things that we can help you to try to connect with the Stanford community.
So if I do that and succeed, that definitely will speed up or streamline the process, right? If I identify a collaborator, a potential collaborator at Stanford that can actually fit with my scientific interest, right?
That's right. And so can I ask you, because I think I remember you had not met Frank Wallach before you came, or you had just met him briefly at a conference or something like that, right?
Yeah. I met in a conference, but we were not working together before. But I knew that he was the director of a center that interact with different people from economic, from engineering. So that I was very interested in to be part of that program. And people, my advice is people in Stanford and in many places are very open. I just wrote an email to Frank saying that I was going to apply to this, be part of this. And he supported me with a letter, and he supported me with application. So just write to the right person. And I think that they are going to be very open to receive you.
I understand that plays a very important part in the process. And my last question, sorry if I'm taking too much time. What are the deliverables of the proposal that they expect, the program spec? Because I heard Enzo saying that you don't need to write a paper, which we instinctively do or try to do all the time, right? We try to write up a review or research papers of whatever topic that we're working on. But what are the expected results and deliverables for the project? So just to be properly tuned and aligned with the focus of this proposal, of this program.
So I think Gabriel mentioned it. It sounds a little bit strange, maybe, if I put it this way, but there is no requirement of any kind. I mean, we ask you to fill an exit survey just for purposes of knowing, how your experience went. I guess the foundation asks for something similar on their end, which is just like a couple of pages, right? Gabriel?
For us, we actually don't require anything on behalf of the foundation. Of course, the program is competitive and 2 spots are being offered each year. And the idea is that we trust in the selection processes of Stanford CLAS, and they're going to select a scholar who they probably believe is going to be a great Luksic Scholar as well. And so the idea is that you would want to be involved also with the foundation, much like Enzo is here joining us in the information session, sort of sharing your experience. And the idea behind all of this is that we enjoy the idea of it being voluntary, of you joining this community. There's nothing sort of obligatory or feeling the pressure. We really want you to go and enjoy your time, work on your research. Of course, that is the main priority, but it's a very flexible program, and I hope that answers your question.
Very much. Yeah, very well. Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
Paul. Well, we hope you end up applying. Thanks again for joining us. I'll go ahead and lower your hand and we'll hear from Flavia. Flavia is actually a Luksic Scholar. So welcome, Flavia. It's great to have you on. I'll go ahead and unmute. And we'd love to hear your question.
Can you hear me well?
Yep, we can hear you just fine.
Thank you very much for the information session. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, I'm not Chilean, I'm Brazilian, but I'm a permanent resident and I am affiliated with a Chilean university, so that's not a problem, right?
Correct.
So I was just looking at the application page. We had corrected that line in the application, and I just realized there's still a typo there. There's still something odd in the way it is written. But this is exactly what Gabriel said. What we want is that people who are affiliated with Chilean universities, regardless of their nationality, they are Chilean scholars for purposes of our engagement, right?
Thank you very much. The other thing is, I'm actually a member of the Center for Business Sustainability at Universidad del Desarrollo. And of course, I'd like to connect with the School of Sustainability at Stanford. And I identified a scholar that could be a potential connection, but she's on sabbatical until March next year. So that was my concern about the letter. So if I can't reach her because she's on sabbatical, or it says she's on leave, I assume she's on sabbatical. So is there some way around that? Can I try to identify other scholars that would be interesting to connect with in case we can't get a confirmation from her? She's supposed to be back by March next year, and I would be applying for winter 2025 for the same reasons Enzo said. That's a good opportunity because we have the teaching requirement here in Chile. And so I think the winter quarter is the best one for us because that it minimizes the overlap with our teaching schedules, right? So she would be back by then, but I'm not sure if I can reach her before the deadline for the submission.
No, it's a great question, and perhaps we can make this information more clear on the website. So maybe this is more on our responsibility. The letter of sponsorship is no longer required. You can simply list 3 Stanford faculty with whom you would like to associate or collaborate. Alberto, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that the letter of sponsorship is no longer required. So we're sort of breaking down that barrier, as Alberto mentioned.
Yeah, I will check with Elizabeth just to make sure that all the wording is right, because I did notice this thing about the Chilean institution, the nationals, the ones who are not Chilean nationals. I think that's not quite clear, but I will check that. But that's indeed what we think right now, that people should be able to tell us, I don't know, sociologists, I have never met Florencia Torche, but she's one of the biggest sociologists in Latin America, period, but she happens to be Chilean, and you might not know her or anything, but you just write to her and say, I want to work with Florencia Torche, even if she is on leave or doesn't answer to your email. And don't take it personally when people don't answer emails from Stanford faculty. I think Enzo is saying, people reacted very positively to his research, but sometimes people are just overwhelmed and they are, not very, attuned. But once you're there and they get to know what you're doing, they will be interested. One thing I can add, just the School of Sustainability is one of the most exciting things happening at Stanford right now. Nobody exactly knows what will be the final way in which it looks. but they're hiring a lot of new faculty. I don't know, Enzo, is Frank Wallach thing, Operation on Energy Policy, going to be part of that? Because some centers that used to do different things related to energy and environment, etc., have been pulled into the School of Sustainability.
Yeah, I don't know if officially it's part of that, but definitely is part of the discussion there.
Yeah, but that school is is kind of conceived as a very, very multidisciplinary space where there will be, you know, very strong emphasis also on people who are working in this human interface with, you know, very hard questions about climate change and about, biodiversity. I mean, it's just incredible what is going on there. So Flavia, I think you would be going to a very good place.
I hope that helps answer your questions, Flavia. So yeah, feel free. You don't need that letter of sponsorship. You can just indicate 3 Stanford faculty with whom you'd like to associate.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for asking so many questions, but I'm really interested in this program. I'm going to. I'm like Gabriel said. I'm already a Luksic Scholar, and I've been having a very good experience with the foundation. So hopefully this is going to continue as a good relationship for everybody involved.
Thanks, Flavia. Yes, Flavia completed a separate program a few years back. Thanks, Flavia. We'll unmute Pablo, Kenzo, and Carolina, but there is just one question, Alberto, I wanted to get to from Cristobal. He asked if they can choose the term that suits them better in the application form.
Yes, the only term that we don't really want to bring scholars is the Northern Hemisphere summer. So basically from July, August, mid-September, we just don't think it's a good time to come to Stanford because faculty disappear from the campus. There's no teaching going on. A lot of people particularly who do field work or who have international collaborations or engagements just, you know, are not around. So, and even the Center for Latin American Studies really goes into a very different set of more evaluation and reporting and things like that. So we don't really have master students around. It's not a very good time to come, no? But I think that's the only limitation, if I'm not wrong, Gabriel, that we ended up with, no?
Yeah, exactly. So yes, it's short answer, Paulo. Yeah, you can indicate which term you would like to go and arrive on campus. We want to make sure it fits with your schedule. I will go ahead and unmute Pablo. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I was just wondering about this third option to demonstrate your English. There is a third option that I don't understand. It says something about Stanford, like someone from Stanford recognizing our English or something.
Yes, I'm sorry that maybe those things are too specific or a little strange. But let me tell you where that comes from. We prefer if you send us your TOEFL. That's the easiest way. There is no complication. The reason why we have that last possibility was because several years ago, we had, for example, an indigenous scholar. So let's say we get a Mapuche scholar who might actually speak English, but might not have a TOEFL and might not want to even pay for the money it costs to pay the TOEFL. We want to have a possibility of a different way for that profile to be able to demonstrate their competence in the language. So
how would that be? Because it's my case, I don't have a TOEFL.
So we would probably have to do like a Zoom call or something like that with somebody from a Stanford faculty, or if you're in Santiago, we could have somebody from our Santiago center, from our center in Santiago, just do like a
excellent. One last question. I am a Catholic priest and I'm working at the theology faculty here in Pontificia Universidad Católica, and I don't see any Catholic teachers there. But I do see that there is a wonderful library. You have good material that might be very interesting for me. So yeah, I mean, I would need to have some guidance on whom I can connect with. So should I write an email directly to you, Alberto, or
write to our staff? More the general email is better, because otherwise we lose track if you send it to me individually. It's better if you do it either class or class director. But we do not have a school of theology as such or religious studies, but we do have a lot of different units within the university that work on different issues having to do with the study of religion. So I think it's a matter of, again, asking my colleagues, because I'm, out of my depth in terms of being able to tell you where exactly in the university your research could fit in, but I'm sure there are spaces that could be quite appropriate.
Great, thank you.
I put the Stanford CLAS's email there so you guys can reach out. Anyone here listening to their team, and so that is in the chat. Thanks, Pablo. I think we'll have time for about one more question. We will end very sharply at the noon mark Chile time. I know Kenzo has had their hand reached, so and let's see. I will unmute. And Kenzo,
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the session. My name is Enzo Sauma. I work as an assistant professor at Universidad Católica and do research in urban economics. And my question is that there are several faculty members that are of interest to me, but one of them is Rebecca Diamond. She's the director of the Cities, Housing and Society Lab. Does the Center of Latin American Studies have any contact with that lab to ease in the communication with her, or maybe not? I do have other ways to reach her, but I just wondered.
The short answer is no, that I know of. But again, I have a board of advising faculty, and we also can reach out to other faculty. We do have more connections with the program for urban studies, but that one is more for the undergraduate students, for the licenciatura students. But do write to us, and we will help you.
Okay, I'll drop you an email. And the second very short question is about the English proficiency. If somebody has carried out their degrees, like masters and PhD in English-speaking countries, does that qualify for the English proficiency test, or do we have to have an interview anyway with one of you?
I think we need the interview just because.
Okay, no, we can have the interview.
I'm sorry, it sounds a bit silly.
Okay.
If you have a TOEFL from 20 years ago, we would be happy to receive that.
Oh, yeah. I do have a TOEFL from 20 years ago. Exactly. So, okay.
I want to add something that about the Kenzo question. In my case, for example, there was not a connection previously between this program that Frangola was running and CLAS, but you could exactly be the contact. I mean that if you are interested in that area and also are going to work with the Center of Latin American Study, you could be the nexus to that, and you could be through a seminar or through other activities, the one that connect the people. And I think that could be beneficial for you and beneficial for Stanford as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks, Kenzo. Best of luck if you end up applying.
Yeah, I'll apply. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
You're welcome, of course. Just one final question we have from Carolina. Carolina, we'll go ahead and unmute your mic.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the information session. I'm part of a staff of a university, and I would appreciate if you can go deeper on the flexibility of this program. As Enzo said, it's flexible, but I would like to know if it is mandatory to spend the 4 months at the university, at the Stanford University. Thank you.
Yes, so this one, I think Gabriel can answer it a little bit better, but we really wanted to create a uniform template on what the experience looks like. And we do want people to be with us for 4 months. Now, it's not exactly, it could be 3 months with 3 weeks. It could be that there's a small interruption because you have to go to a conference and come back or do something over a particular period of time. But we do think that the 4 months is important. Our experience also with, again, I think Enzo had the same experience. If it's too short, you just cannot start bringing these things to fruition of collaborating with another professor in writing a paper, or if you're a scientist that needs a lab, you know, a very short period of time is too short. I don't know, Gabriel, if that answers the question.
Yeah. So we actually chatted with Enzo and Carolina, who both did the program in 2022, and asked their advice, because the program was originally 3 months, and we asked and said, what do you think is most appropriate? And their experience is 4 months is quite ideal, and so we want you to be able to spend those 4 months, and of course everything's covered, so we would hope you would also want to spend those 4 months there on the campus, sort of taking advantage of that time there, especially considering that there aren't any other sort of formal requirements of turning in papers, signing things with the foundation, nothing like that. So in a sort of short, sweet answer, the program's quite flexible, but in terms of actually being there on campus, we would expect, right, that the 4 months, you're able to stay there for the full 4 months.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Carolina, for your time. And just wanted to let everyone know that we will send a recording of this session via email, and it will be made available online. So you can find that on our YouTube channel. And we do hope that you feel inspired, encouraged to apply. We, of course, want to thank Enzo for taking the time out of his week to be here with us today to share his experience. And of course, Alberto, who's also very busy in Europe currently, for taking the time to share insights, advice with us today. So we hope you apply. We will be in touch. And thank you to everyone.
Thank you. Gracias, Gabriel. Gracias, Enzo. And gracias a todos, todas, por estar con nosotros.
Mucha suerte a todos y todas. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.